Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now some of you've been telling me, sending me some WhatsApp, saying, Michael, can you elaborate more about you saying that Museveni is the father of the communist democracy? What do you really mean? Now let me give you guys a little bit of history of Uganda. Now, when Uganda got independent in 1962, of course we know that the power has been given to Mutesa, and Obote became the prime minister. But later on, of course, we know what happened when Obote took over the power in 1967, and of course, Uganda became a republic. But there's something you didn't see there. It was that Obote was trying to figure out himself, either to lie into the side of the left or side of the right, which is the European side or the British side or the side of the Chinese or the Russian side, of course, which is the communist state, or some people call them the authoritarian state. But let me give you guys the straightforward things here, is that sometimes the ideology doesn't matter. Now, some people are socialist, some people are communist, some people are liberal, some people are conservative. Now, when you look into yourself, they're saying democracy has a lot of itself, like a different ways they can look at democracy. Some people look at democracy as a conservative democracy. Some people look at democracy as a liberal democracy. Now, then there's also a socialist democracy. Then there's a socialist under the authoritarian and communist state. So all these comprise different ideologies people develop. So Museveni, being a young man by then, he was busy observing all this and trying to build a system that will help him manage Uganda for at least a good period of time. So he saw Obote trying to practice democracy, and then did the democracy worked for him? I don't think so. Some of you can say about that. Secondly, let's also talk about Amin. When Amin came into power, he fully exercised the power of communist state. Now, some people will say the communist kind of government was working because Amin did some work. Then we see Obote too, the same thing now, was trying to be confused. Should he lie more on the communist side or more of the democratic side? But then, this is what happened. And when Museveni came into power, he decided first to rule Uganda for at least 10 years. So 10 years in power, so there was no any constitution means of running of the state. So he introduced something called the National Resistance Council. For those of you who remember that. So the National Resistance Council was the one handling the situations and affairs of the state. So for 10 years. Then later on in 1994, he introduced the Uganda Constitution, which later on came to existence as the 1995 Constitutions. But in then he was trying to figure out the system that worked. You get the point? So he realized that the only way to play this card and play this drum well, for you to manage the government, is to balance the two. So that's why I call it the communist democracy. The communist democracy is a new wave of ideology that more the Africans, they are adopting them into their system of running of the government. You get the point? Most of the African states that have stayed in, for example, look at Paul Biya in Cameroon, look at the president of Cote d'Ivoire, and many other presidents that have done it. Look at Muammar Gaddafi, look at the former president of Zimbabwe. Of course, all of them, whatever they did, look at the Paul Kagame. So all of them, they are running them under the communist democracy. It's only recently Kenya that are trying to come up, because Kenya was more focused on the democracy time, even the Tanzanian. But after now, they are learning it from this our father Museveni. Now they're trying to apply some bit of the communist part of it, which it might not work for Kenya, but in Uganda it's working, because in Uganda we have never had a peaceful transfer of power. It has never been there. So we have gone through the chaos that has been happening, and I believe at the right time, at the right moment, that sometimes we need to accept a certain ideology that has been introduced. First of all, is it working in Uganda? The answer will be yes, it is working, because through the communist democracy ideology or the philosophy, we see that President Museveni managed to build a loyal and stable security and the UPDF and the Uganda police. So we need to accept that has been quite a good thing. But also, due to the the midst of the two, the communist and then the democracy system, because remember the communist mean of government is where the government run the full show of the authority of the state. Then under the democratic, it's the opposite because it's more on people depend on the capitalist. So you find that the government has to depend also on the private sector. So Uganda is running on the two. So you find that the government also has to play the show of their part, and then also has to allow the private sector and the capitalists to play their part. So don't be shocked, as recently I said that, see what's happening in Europe. For example, in the US now, if someone say, I am a socialist democracy, someone begin complaining. You see that point? So the truth is, yes, we need to accept that a communist democracy is a new wave of ideology that is running within the African state. That we, the young generation, need to understand that should we adopt that, because we can't fight it, but it is working for the better and the peace of Uganda, should we accept it and move forward with it, or should we say no with it? Because we can't copy and paste. As I said some time back, we can't copy the type of democracy system of the Europe, for example, the conservative democracy. We can't copy something like a liberal democracy in Uganda. This is something that we can't copy and paste into our government system. We're thinking we're going to practice it. So we need to accept, yes, if President Museveni has given us a different ideology that is going to work for us, can we take it? Can we accept it for the sake of running the system of our government and giving a better service delivery? The only challenge I have is that the people within, that are working within the Museveni government, are the people who are using him and forgetting to provide the service. So, does it work? We will get to find out as time goes on. But others will say, 40 years in power, it does not work. But somehow, from here, will say, somehow it has worked. Because where Uganda was and where Uganda now, at least we see a certain bit of difference of change compare when Uganda was by then. At least right now we have a stable army which wasn't there. Our economy is somehow growing, but the question will be, at what rate is the economy growing? You get the point. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to clarify that for those people who wanted to understand that first. So thank you guys so much. I wish you guys all the best. See you guys next time in the next video.